Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the upcoming fusion champion Bivald of the Thorn. So this is on the test server. One thing I want to say right off the bat is if you've been feeling overwhelmed by too many fusions, definitely don't be completely against skipping some of these fusions. Now, obviously, some of these champions could be very, very beneficial to your account, but if you're kind of on the fence, but you're feeling overwhelmed, just skip it. It's not going to be the end of the world. I've skipped a few fusions recently and honestly, can't even tell a difference. Pardon is one of them that he's going to be good for some accounts, but on my main account, I have no use for him other than being a dupe in the Faction Guardian. If I ever pulled another copy, that's really the only way. But Bivald of the Thorn, let's talk about him. I'll give you guys some of my, findings. This is on the test server, so it's been very limited amount of time that I could actually test him. But we'll go through it, and you guys can hopefully decide if you're going to go for him or not. Let me know down in the comment section below if you're going to go for him, or if more importantly, you see a use that maybe I forgot or missed. Definitely share it down below because I'm very interested. Now, first off, I will be going for this guy. I think he has some solid uses. Now, he's probably just going to be in my vault majority of the time, to be honest, on my main account. But I think he's unique, so I am going to go for him. So his A1 ability, attacks one enemy, 30% chance of placing Provoke for 1 turn. Also heals the ally with the lowest HP by 15% of the damage inflicted. The Provoke can be placed even if this attack lands a weak hit. So Magic Affinity champions like Kymar, Ray, Trunda, whatever it may be, you don't have to worry about the weak hits. Now, you do have to worry about your accuracy being too low and them resisting you, but the weak hits, they don't matter. So that's really, really good. I really like that. Now, it books up to 50% chance, so he's definitely worth the books there. His A2 ability attacks all enemies 2 times. The first hit has a 75% chance of placing Provoke for 1 turn. The second hit has a 75% chance of placing Leech for 2 turns, which Leech, in case you don't know, is like a very scaled down version of Lifesteal, which is very nice. You have Lifesteal without actually having the Lifesteal gear. So this is a very good debuff, especially for keeping you alive in dungeon waves. Also places a 25% Strengthen buff on this champion for 2 turns. Strengthen just ignore or reduces the damage you take by 25%. The Leech and Provoke debuffs can be placed even if this attack lands as a weak hit. His A3 attacks all enemies. Damage increases by 5% for each debuff on each enemy. Also heals all allies by 20% of the damage inflicted and places a shield buff on them for 2 turns equal to 20% of the damage inflicted. Now, all of his abilities, they have pretty impactful books. We have cooldowns on his A3. We have debuff chance on his A2 and cooldowns as well, and debuff chance on his A1 ability. So definitely worth the books. You're going to need about 11 books, assuming you want to fully book out everything. 11 books is definitely what you're going to want to save for if you plan on going for this guy and if you plan on actually using him. Now, his passive ability is very interesting. So, decreases the damage taken by all allies from each enemy under Provoke by 15%. This is very, very good because basically he's primarily reducing the damage that he takes by 15%, because if somebody's provoked, they're going to be attacking him. However, if there's an enemy Skullcrown, if there's an enemy Sinesha, if there's an enemy Ray, or any champion who does AoE damage, if they're provoked, they're going to deal 15% less damage essentially to your other allies who are being affected by that AoE ability. Also, if you were to bring a champion like Visix or a champion like Molly into whatever content you're doing to provoke alongside him, and their provoke was applied, so Bivald is actually not taking any of the provoke, none of the taunting, nothing like that, but Molly is getting attacked, she's going to take 15% less damage. So it's a very good passive, but most of the time it's just going to be used on him, and it's going to be all single target champions attacking him anyways. And his aura increases ally HP in all battles by 28%. This is very good because being a HP based champion on all of his abilities, there's no way to actually buff his HP. So having this aura is a nice little benefit to bring him into content, and hey, you can get a little extra boost compared to some other HP based champions or whatever it may be. But let's go in here and talk about how I have him built. So before we get into his gearing, let's talk about his masteries. These are what I've done. Now, I do have Fearsome Presence because it does boost the chance of his A1 provoke actually landing, and it does boost the chance of the Frost set that I have equipped on him actually placing the freeze when he gets attacked. As far as the support tree, I just went extra healing or extra health, extra healing from his A3 ability. I could have picked up this one as well. There's definitely a lot of different ways you could go with this. You could definitely go down the offense tree. It's no problem whatsoever. Offense and support, I think support's kind of a given. Definitely when you're going to want to go, the defense could definitely be swapped out for offense. Now, as far as his artifact sets, before we get into the actual stats needed, I think obviously broken sets, perception sets, doesn't really matter if you're just going for stats, okay? Go for the stats, get what you need, and be happy with that. But as far as sets, I think that the Frost set is very, very nice. Basically, if somebody gets provoked, they attack you, they have a chance of getting frozen, which basically allows for 2 turns of control, which is very good because it's going to help him get back around to his provoke and basically keep the enemies locked down the entire match, which obviously, if you're not getting attacked, or if all of your attacks are being directed to one champion, you're not really going to have that much trouble throughout different areas of the game. The next 2 sets I want to mention are Stun since he has AoE abilities on his A2 and his A3 ability, stun set could be beneficial, because if they are stunned, if they're provoked, they're going to use their A1 ability against you, but if they're stunned, they're going to use absolutely nothing against you. So stun set does have a benefit, and on his A3 ability, it doesn't place provoke or anything like that, so having the stun benefit is very nice. I want to mention taunting set as well, because taunting on his A3, you have a chance of placing provoke from an ability that doesn't have provoke already on it, or from the A1 ability, since it only has a 50% chance, which is very good when fully booked up. This 30% chance of placing provoke will help you get a little bit closer to 100%. This set doesn't require any accuracy to actually land the provoke, so it's something to consider, but honestly, your taunting gear is probably not great anyways, so I think frost set is going to be the best pick as far as extra sets go, or whatever set for whatever you're trying to do in the game. Toxic could even have some benefit because you'll be placing poisons on everybody on the enemy's team. But I've been liking the frost set so far. The freezing. Is this frost or freezing? I forget. We have frost, okay. But frost bite is actually really good too. If you had frost plus frost bite, you're going to have a very solid chance of freezing the enemies each turn. So this is definitely a solid option. You could do stun plus frostbite. So there's a lot of different options you could go, or you could go just the prioritizing stats route, which when we're talking about stats, my number one priority for him is going to be speed. I think he really needs speed, because if you're able to get back around to that A2 ability, you're going to be placing the provoke even more frequently. And I mean, on a 3-turn cooldown, that's not too hard to do. You can definitely lap the enemies enough to keep that provoke up basically the entire time. So having good speed, very, very important, and my number one priority. And then accuracy. Obviously, if you're missing your provokes, then it's basically useless, right? Like his entire kit is more or less going to waste if you're not landing your provokes. So you're going to need accuracy appropriate for whatever level of the game you're doing. If you're doing stage 20 plus dungeons, you're going to need 200 plus accuracy. If you're doing Doom Tower, you're going to need even more. Just look up what you need for each level, what stage you're on. And then for the arena, I'd probably push for like 400 plus, depending on what you're going to use him for inside the arena and what level you are in the arena. Maybe 200 is fine, or maybe 400 is what's needed, or maybe even higher, maybe even 600, who knows? But definitely push it a lot higher for the arena than you would for like dungeon content. And then after accuracy, my next priorities would be HP and defense. So HP is going to be weighted a little bit higher simply because he's an HP based champion. So all of his damage is going to be based off of HP. He has very good base HP as it is. So I'm going to weigh the HP a little bit higher, but defense is very important as well. You don't want to have a champion with super high HP, but super low defense. Most of the time, Vogoth, I know you're an exception, but most of the time you want good defense, very good HP, and so that whenever they get attacked, they're not taking huge chunks of their overall HP pool. Now, after the HP and defense breakdown goes, crit rate and crit damage. Obviously, crit rate is prioritized way more than crit damage up until the point you're either 85% if you're strong affinity against everything, because you get that extra 15% for being strong affinity, or 100% preferably, okay? 100% crit rate. After that, crit damage is going to get some benefit, but honestly, I prioritize getting crit rate to 100% much more than I prioritize getting extra crit damage, because while this guy does have AoE abilities, and they do hit reasonably, they're not like top tier. He's definitely not going to replace Magnar as far as nuking goes, so he does have some benefits from his A3 as far as the shield goes, as far as the healing on his A1, as far as the healing goes. Whenever he deals damage, he heals based on the damage that he deals, but I don't think this guy is worth dropping a good amount of HP, a good amount of defense, good amount of speed and accuracy to get that 220, 230, 240 crit damage, because it just doesn't make sense in my opinion for how I'm going to use him. His damage is reasonable, but it's not top tier, jaw dropping. This is absolutely amazing, and he's HP based, so you can't really boost it by increasing his attack. You can increase his crit damage from buffs like that, but you can't increase his HP other than an HP aura. Let's go in here and actually do some showcasing for him and talk about some of my usage. So we'll jump into a dragon stage 25. He is strong affinity, so if I was going the crit rate, I'd be perfectly fine with 85%, but he has 20%, so he's not going to be landing many crits whatsoever. That's okay. I don't really care, to be honest. But now in Dragon, what you're going to see here, I only have 3 champions. I don't really care what his damage is. We'll do a little bit of a damage showcase after this, but what you're going to see is the enemies getting provoked, and then quite a few of them actually getting the frost or the freeze placed on them when they attack him, which is very nice. I mean, it helps have even more crowd control. If a few less enemies are attacking him, then it's even better, right? So we got that enemy right there frozen, very nice, no provoke on him, but honestly, he's probably going to cycle back around to get his provoke off again. So if you're an early game player and you're struggling through dungeon waves, I think Bivald is going to be absolutely incredible. I mean, he reduces the damage the enemies deal, he places strengthen on himself, he heals when he attacks. He is going to be so good for staying alive during the waves. And a big part of raid is actually getting through the waves in different areas of the game, different dungeons, because once you get to the boss, a lot of champions can actually solo the boss, especially in dragons, ice golem, spider. That's a whole different story. And fire knight, I don't really think he's going to have much of a use unless you just really struggle on the wave content, which I think he's absolutely amazing for. Having the strength and ability whenever he does the provoke is absolutely perfect, and then having the frost set on him, I think it just all just goes together. Plus having the leech ability, so whenever an ally attacks, they also get healed. It's just a very good synergy overall. So early game, mid game accounts, I think Bivald honestly is going to be very beneficial. Now, there's a lot of champions in the game who can provoke. Obviously, you have Mollies, you have the free champions like Gnarlhorn, you have Umbral Enchantress, you have a lot of champions who can provoke, but I think Bivald is one of the top champions as far as people who can provoke consistently and keep themselves alive very well with a kit that actually makes pretty good sense. His shield, even when he's not doing very much damage, is still pretty nice because you're in dungeon content. So check this out. You're in dungeon content, so you're attacking all the enemies. So whenever he does a shield, we have a shield right now that has 1, 2, 3, 3.5 bars. Let's see what this one does, okay? So we'll go ahead and hit this. A little few extra bars added onto there. So that's with no actual damage stats built onto him. Bivald definitely brings a reasonable amount of protection to the rest of your team. Now the next usage case that I want to talk about with him is a use that, to be honest, there's other champions who can do this, okay? Champions like Gnarlhorn can do this. Champions like Molly, like I mentioned, any provoke champion, any freeze champion. But if you don't have those champions, and Gnarlhorn, while he can do it, he's not the best at it because he's pretty squishy. So we have the classic arena. Basically, this guy is going to work as a second in your speed team. Now, for this example, I'm going to have to use Kymar because my Arbiter is not speed tuned. Well, actually, we can do that, okay? So we can do this. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is going to be much better for lower level arena because if the enemy is running cleansers, or if they're running cleansers with block debuffs, this just isn't going to work. But if you have your fastest champion go, speed boost into Bivald, he can provoke everybody, assuming he has good resistance. This is where you'd want to have that really high number of resistance. So here, we're going to take Bivald, 225 speed, provoke everybody. Ideally, you'd have somebody strip, you'd have a much higher accuracy in general, but early game arena, you should be fine with like 300 accuracy. You'll be fine with just your Haikatoon, your whoever you use, Gore Grab, whoever it is as your speed booster can easily boost into Bivald and make it perfectly speed tuned. Then you can have your Bivald, like my free-to-play account, I have my Shiromani at like 225 speed, good accuracy, she freezes everybody, and then my nuker can be like 170 speed, much more focused on damage, so it allows you to nuke a lot harder in the arena because you don't have to worry about speed tuning your entire team, boosting your nuker's speed, and thus lowering their overall damage. Plus, he does bring enough utility where it actually makes sense, okay? He has the leech, not a huge deal there, but his A3, he also has the healing, plus the shield, so he does bring a little bit extra utility, and his A1 has the provoke. So overall, his kit definitely makes sense to be brought into the arena as that go second kind of speed gap filler. It's essentially like what you would do with a Kymar. Now granted, Kymar is next level steroid version of all of this because he strips and sleeps. That was a little bit of an overview for the arena. Now obviously for Sacred Order Faction Crypts, this guy is going to be absolutely incredible. I mean, he brings wave control, which is so good in Faction Wars. If you can control the waves, you're going to have no issue really getting through the waves, getting to the boss, building your team basically around the boss fight. Should be perfectly fine. Now, with Faction Wars, obviously, if you're struggling with Sacred Order, go for this guy 100%. And then finally, the Doom Tower. I think he's going to be very, very solid in the Doom Tower. Obviously, if you're struggling with any waves throughout, if you're struggling with Mortu Macabre, he can provoke Mortu Macabre, and then Mortu won't do the Peril ability, which kills everybody because he can't. He's provoked. He can only use his A1 ability if he is provoked, okay? Which is absolutely incredible as well. Now, as far as Hydra goes, you could technically bring him in to be used on Hydra because he does have the Leech debuff, but to be honest, he's not really a Hydra champion in my opinion because his kit really doesn't bring that much extra. The shields are nice. Maybe you could build him for that, but I think his builds for the Doom Tower, for Faction Wars, for Arena potentially, for Dungeons are just far superior. Now, this guy, for in-game accounts, I think is probably going to spend majority of the time in the vault. For mid-game accounts, working through dungeons, working through Doom Tower, I think you're going to see a lot of use from this champion, and you have a solid reason to actually go for the fusion. Early game accounts, I think it's going to be very, very beneficial. He can work on all the stages because he doesn't really have a weak affinity, or at least not one that really matters. Obviously, he will be taking more damage from magic affinity champions, but as far as placing his provoke, it doesn't matter whatsoever. And he places strength in himself. So as far as an early game, mid-game, great champion. In-game, you're probably not going to use him, but then again, what do you really expect, right? Like as an in-game player, you're not really getting many champions specifically crafted for you because there's so few areas where champions could actually improve your count, the majority of it would be arena. So guys, before we end the video, I wanted to go ahead and throw him into some lethal gear. Here's his nuking stats. This is basically the exact same build my Magnar has, and these are his masteries as well. I'm gonna throw him into the Doom Tower real quick just to see a battle, see how he does. I'll throw my Magnar in just for a few to see as well what he does. But to be honest, the testing that I did earlier, he was not very impressive, okay? He didn't do a ton of damage. It wasn't terrible. There's definitely champions who do less damage, but as far as like comparing to Magnar, Magnar is on just a completely different level. He's not going to hit Magnar level damage. His A2 ability, 11 and 10. So basically, what, 25 on some of them? Nothing crazy whatsoever. I'm going to go ahead and try to back out of this match. If player can let me. And then we'll use his A3 ability, test that out real quick. So 122,000 damage. I'm not going to keep doing this over and over and over. You can see pretty quickly how it does. 22, 31,000. So overall, a total of 127,000 damage. Let me swap this gear over to Magnar real quick, just to give you guys a comparison. And keep in mind, Bivald does have a aura that's actually boosting his HP even more than what Magnar would have boosted. We're going to go ahead and see the comparison. You should see a pretty big difference between these two champions just with this small little test. So right here, we hit for 17,000 and 23,000. So obviously, right off the bat for the A2 ability, pretty good difference, okay? Now keep in mind, if he had decreased defense, it's going to be scaled up even more. Now his A3 ability is a single target. So obviously, Bivald is going to hit harder on his A3 because it's an AoE ability. So if you're in a long match, the consistent AoE abilities may be what you need more, but overall, Magnar is just going to hit harder than Bivald, but Bivald damage is respectable. But I don't think he's going to be an arena nuker replacing your Magnar, especially if you took him out of the HP lead spot, then it's going to be still as it is. So as a nuker, I don't think he's quite up to that level. He's decent, but guys, thank you all very much for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.